The Trans Am Challenge.
On March 25, 1966, 44 cars took to the track at Sebring International Raceway, commencing what was then entitled the Trans-American Sedan Championship. Together, they set into motion 50 years of road racing excellence, a movement that would change the face of road racing forever. From its beginning, Trans Am has been America's road racing series. From the production pony wars to the GT factory years to the road racing renaissance of today, the Trans Am series has captured the public's imagination, and the name itself, Trans Am, is known worldwide. 2016 marks the 50th anniversary of Trans Am, and over its 5 decades of racing, the series has made an unquestionable impact on motorsports, our memories, and our lives through legendary races, legendary drivers, and legendary institutions, all making their mark on the Trans Am.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Kalkunis, president of the Alberta Vintage Racing Club. Welcome to The Faster I Was, the fictitious podcast where racing legends meet, typically legends in their own mind, to relive their glory days. And the lap times somehow keep getting quicker with each retelling. We're here at the Turn 17 Grand Prix for the Vintage on the Prairies, a weekend of amazing cars, great company, stories, and delicious barbecue. Today, we're celebrating the legendary cars of the Trans Am series, from small bore muscle to the big bore monsters. Today, we're joined by one of the most iconic racers in Canadian history, Ron Fellows. Ron's career spans multiple decades and disciplines. He's best known for dominating the Trans Am series in the 90s, earning back-to-back championships, and making the Chevrolet Corvette a fearsome name in North American road racing. He's a multiple class winner at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, a Daytona winner, and one of the few drivers to make a name for himself in NASCAR road racing, sort of a road race, what would you call it, hired gun back in the day initially, and then
I think they were referred to as ringers then.
Road race ringers, back when this wasn't a common crossover. Off the track, Ron has contributed enormously to Canadian motorsport. He's co-owner of the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, runs a world-class performance driving school, and remains a champion for young Canadian drivers trying to find their place in the sport. Ron's story is full of grit, guts, and gears, and today we're extremely lucky to have him so that we can hear it straight from the source. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you, Anthony.
Did I miss it?
I do need to preface, I did not win a Trans Am championship.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, no, multiple championships in the American Le Mans series, but did not win. Yeah, we won the manufacturers, dominant wins in 95. We won the manufacturer championship, but I lost the driver's championship.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for the clarification. But you know, it fits.
I'm not going to claim something I did not get.
Yes, you didn't get it, but I did it for you because, of course, as time goes on, never let details get in the way of a good story.
There you go. Faster I was, yes.
Ron, can you take us back? What first got you into racing? Was there a specific moment or car or driver that kind of sparked it all?
Yes, there was. It was the 1969, and I'm dating myself because I'm old. The Canadian Grand Prix at then Mosport. It was the first car race I went to. I was 11 years old, and my uncle took my brother Rob and I and a friend of his a friend of my uncle's. They both rallied, and we went to the Grand Prix and got there early. Got to the top of the grandstands, and the location of the grandstands then is where our current beautiful event center is. But yeah, no, when the cars came out for the morning warm up, I got goosebumps, and then seeing the race, and I just thought I got to get on the other side of the fence somehow. And yeah, easier said than done, but that's where it started.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about that is I think you still have that sort of healthy, motorsports, professional motorsports, community in Eastern Canada where kids still have that opportunity to go to a race, hear the sounds, smell
Yeah.
the smells, the sounds, the experiences. And I think that in many parts of the world, especially Western Canada right now, the ability for kids to go out and see races is really dwindling, which is part of, I think, the challenge that we're facing
Yeah.
as a community in a sport. That's amazing.
Yeah, and of greater concern is we once had a terrific ladder system, for lack of a better term, and that's sadly lacking as well. And again, it goes back to the era that I cut my teeth in. I went broke racing open wheel cars, and spent 4 years having to continue to work in construction to pay down the debt. But along came the Players GM Series for me in 1986, and that's really, that was a series that back then it was a $20,000 car ready to race. You had to drive it to the track the first year, and it paid $6,000 to win. Unheard of. And you could, if you were any good, there was two things: you were gonna make some money, and because of the visibility of the series and the popularity of it, you were going to get some sponsorship. And that's really the series that revived my career aspirations. And unfortunately, that doesn't. We just don't have the same series that whether it was a high profile open wheel, a couple of closed wheel series. The Canadian NASCAR series is kind of it at a national level.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Not to make this a depressing call.
No. I think this is all what we as a community and as enthusiasts are facing. Ron, I think in my experience, people that get into racing come from two camps. One is they have a super supportive family that was part of the racing community and they kind of brought them into it. The other one is they sort of succeeded at all costs. Which one are you, despite maybe not having the support of their family?
Right. Well, I had great moral support. However, I was the oldest of five, and my dad was an Anglican minister, and yeah, my mom needed to stay at home with five kids, so there was no extra money for what when I started. My brother and I started karting, and I was 15 and he was 14. But yeah, no, it was tough slugging, and it was, I got myself in terrible debt, and it was a lot of hard work, and a fair amount of risk in terms of borrowing money and committing to the path. But I really felt that this is what I was meant to do, and was to race cars and make a living at it. And in the end, it worked out. But there were a number of years where it was super challenging, and they were miserable not being able to race because I was so badly in debt. But I managed to, no pun intended, as a machine operator digging trench, dig myself out of debt.
Nah. Ron, so the focus of our race weekend is the Trans Am series, right? That started in '66, but it lived on in many different iterations. You talked about the Players GM series.
Yeah.
Was the next step to jump into Trans Am, and how did that whole thing get started for you?
Right. Yeah. So, I see in your backdrop there a beautiful Datsun 510. So that's what I got my racing license in, was a B sedan Datsun 510. My uncle had one. Yeah. So the short version is, as a reward for winning some of the big Players GM races, Montreal, Toronto, um, Santa Air back then. Um, one of the sponsors I had, Mackenzie Financial, mutual fund company, supported me in two Trans Am races in '88 and then three in '89, and I won one in '89, and that was a breakthrough opportunity, really. And I did it with Jack Roush, and I ended up 1990 getting most of a full season with Roush. I think it was 10 of the 13 races, and with Motorcraft and AER. And AER's turned into a lifelong friendship and sponsorship relationship. They're based in Addison, Texas. But yeah, so that I was essentially with Ford and Roush, then Tom Gloy through the '94 season, and then got hired by Chevy and been there ever since. But it was initially, again, a reward for winning in the Players GM series from then President Jim O'Donnell, who did a lot for a number of drivers back in the '80s and '90s, when with the mutual fund company Mackenzie Financial. So Jim sadly passed away a couple of months ago, but a great mentor for me, for Scott Goodyear in particular. Just a terrific guy, and loved the sport and loved to see people succeed.
Ron, can you paint a picture for the audience? What makes a Trans Am car maybe different from some of the other cars that you've raced it? Maybe what was the transition from the Players GM series up to Trans Am like?
Yeah, huge. But it was, the lessons learned in a showroom stock car that had 225 horsepower V8 on a street tire. The level of finesse and smoothness required, were translated into the Trans Am car. Certainly with the Trans Am cars were lighter. They were tube frame, fiberglass bodies. Some they were called silhouette. They were really a silhouette car. Yeah. And had some downforce, good brakes, and slicks. And so for me, it was, wow, I can be super aggressive, driving, cornering with this car because it's got such great grip. But it was some of the most fun racing I did, because the races were, 100 to 125 miles, and super intense. Generally, it was one set of tires. You could not afford to make a pit stop, and back then, if we did, we were really slow at it, because it just wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a discipline back then.
Yeah, and the cautions weren't as frequent either. Safety cars, but yeah, no, they're tube frame car. They were about 2,600 pounds, around 600 horsepower, in that range there, and just five-speed transmission, adjustable. We had adjustable sway bars front and rear. But
Were those driver adjustable, or were they?
Yeah, driver adjustable. Yeah, it was just a lever. There was a lever on the left side of the cockpit area that you could do front and rear. We tend to just do rear sway bar adjustments, but as the fuel load burned off. But anyway, yeah, they were. It was really, the era that I was in. There was Ford, Chevy, Dodge, were the had factory teams, and just great racing. And it was it drew a crowd, had decent TV in the U.S. and absolutely some of the most fun racing that I did over that window of time, and was really fortunate to get the opportunity to go with Buzz McCall's American Equipment Racing team. That was the Chevy factory team, and obviously with my history in the Players GM series, I had a lot of friends at General Motors in Canada, and my family were, my grandfather was a GM guy, buying Oldsmobiles, Buicks, GMCs, and we had a Chevy Malibu Classic station wagon. So there was plenty of GM influence. And when the turning point really for me was when I won the Detroit Belle Isle Trans Am race in '94. I was with Ford, but the race was sponsored by Chevy. So the head of GM Racing was presenting me with the trophy, and he literally, out of the side of his mouth, says to me, "How do we get you in a Chevy?" And I said, "Give me a call."
Was this by chance Herb Fischel, like the
It was
legendary?
Herb Herschel. Yes,
Yeah.
it was. Yeah, and so we met in August, and yeah, I went to Chevy's and had a 3-year deal, and that moved into the Corvette racing program after that. So yeah, and yeah, no, I've been really fortunate to have a now 30-year relationship with General Motors on both sides of the border, and it's turned into numerous other opportunities. The Corvette School in Nevada, and partnership with the racetrack and Carlo Pedani and General Motors being a partner there, along with Canadian Tire. So yeah, there's the nice part about it is that some of the corporations that helped me and I've been involved with, from Canadian Tire to General Motors and Michelin, they're all supporting the racetrack as well, and our high performance driving school in Nevada. So it's yeah, no, I'm really fortunate.
Amazing. Ron, who were some of your toughest competition, or maybe some of the characters that you remember from
Yeah.
the Trans Am series? Anything that stands out?
Oh, plenty. I guess that was that was also the good part of it. It was a intense, fierce rivalry, and coming from being a not a great hockey player, but a big fan of hockey. It was enjoyed that a bit of hate with the competitors, and yeah, when I initially got into the Trans Am series, Tommy Kendall was dominant. Dorsey Schrader was a teammate, very good, but he was great to race against. Dorsey was probably the race clean, but super close, and you had great trust with him. Scott Sharp was dominant. Jack Baldwin was a great character. Scott Pruitt, another great guy to race against, and probably the driver that I had the biggest rivalry with was Tommy Kendall, and we have relived a few of those in the last 10 years. But yeah, no, it was just a ton of fun, and I think that if the I think if the the series was a little bit ahead of its time, and I think if the marketing had continued to grow, the manufacturers would have stayed, and it might have been a very different series today had that growth continued through the 90s and into the 2000s. But it's certainly had a revival with certainly with the popularity of TA2, but Yeah, I just, the great part about the series was we were either the Saturday feature at an IndyCar race or a Formula One race, Phoenix back in 1990, or a feature race, and we got to race on iconic road courses all over North America. Great street races, a couple of rovals. Yeah, no, it was, and generally about a 13 race schedule, and just really, really enjoyed the racing because it was pure.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're a kid from Ontario. You found your way into racing, success in Players GM. Then you get a ride in Trans Am in a Mustang. Then you move to Corvette on the factory team. Now you go into the team pulls you into ALMS and Le Mans. What was that like? That
Well,
must have just been. Was that progressive, or were you like, holy crap?
Well, there was a holy crap moment for sure because, and I had a 3-year contract that's beginning in the '95 Trans Am season, and then at the end of the '96 season, Chevrolet was not happy with how things were going with the rules folks at SCCA Pro Racing, and pulled the plug. So we just bought a house, and I had another year on my contract, which Chevrolet honored and encouraged me to do some other things. And so that's when I started to do a little bit of NASCAR, the NASCAR road races, and won a truck race in '97 at Watkins Glen. Then I was able to get into a Ferrari 333 open cockpit prototype with Rob Morgan. We won at the home track, Mosport, in August, and then I was in early September. My contract was up, and I was summoned to Detroit to meet with Herb Fischel and Joe Negri, and that was where they said, we want to take a Corvette to Le Mans, and we'd like you to be the lead driver in that. And I was just, I'm in. You know how many times I've been to Le Mans? But it was interesting because there was a divide in sports car racing back then. GT racing, the GT rules were very different in Europe than they were, and there were two different sets of rules in North America. So it was quite divided, and what direction, and I was curious, okay, so what direction are we going here? Are we going to race in Europe with this, and the rules evolved to where we ended up testing the entire 1998 season, and before we raced at the Rolex 24. The debut was the Rolex 24 at Daytona in '99, but the rules evolved during the season, so we're making updates to this was the Pratt Miller team that became the factory program for Corvette racing, and the car was evolving in terms of weight, engine displacement, tire size, and Herb in particular, he believed in that there was a guy by the name of Don Panos, and Herb said this gentleman is a visionary. He's starting a series with the Le Mans name. It's going to be the American Le Mans series, and it's going to be a North American series with the Le Mans rules platform, and it was a bridge to eventually sports car racing in Europe and North America under one set of rules. And Herb was right, and Don Panos persevered, and it took probably 10 years for it all to be united. But in the end, the American Le Mans series was the big show in North America for sports car racing, and again those rules allowed us that they were the ACO Le Mans rules, and it was great for everybody from Audi and BMW and Porsche and prototype to certainly Corvette racing in the GT. We raced against Viper, the Dodge Viper factory team, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Porsche. So it was awesome, and certainly for us the breakout year was 2001, and we won the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and we won it overall. The GT cars were that quick and also that reliable, and then got our first class win at Le Mans, and I remember getting that class win at Le Mans. I had never seen Herb smile so big and for so long. It was for him, it was about a 10-year journey for the GM racing group, with under Herb and Joe Negri to achieve the goal of taking a Corvette to Le Mans and winning. So
amazing.
Yeah.
As a racer and as a spectator, the 24-hour races are super special, right? What's it like to race at Le Mans? Because I've been a spectator there.
Yeah.
I remember watching the cars go by, at 3 a.m. while the rest of my family slept. But tell me what it's like to be a racer there.
Well, the best part of a 24-hour race is when it's over. It's I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's hard. You have 3 drivers, and Le Mans is the most difficult just because of the track is long. It's 8.5 miles around. 20, I think it's 27 corners, and obviously a lot of straightaway, and a good portion of the track continues to be on public roads. So as you leave Tetra Rouge and get onto the Mulsanne, that's public road, through the next 2 chicanes. The Mulsanne Straight, which is 3 miles long, is broken up with 2 chicanes now, down to the Mulsanne hairpin, from the Mulsanne hairpin down through Indy in Arnage to the Porsche curves. That's all public roads. So it's the asphalt is got the waves in it from trucks, and is uneven, and narrow in places, and there's no room for error. You've got a couple lanes wide and or 2.5 lanes wide, and a few meters of grass and guardrail. So it takes on a very different look at night as well. So physically, Le Mans is not super difficult unless it's really hot. Before they had decent cooling systems in the cars, but it's just mentally tough, just because of the length of the track, the difficulty with visibility and lights, and then in the GT car, we were in GT1 cars, so there were some cars that were slower, and then you had the fast prototypes, so you had to be on your toes all the time. And it was absolutely awesome, and it was interesting that we did when I was at Le Mans this year, it was a bit of a 25 years of Corvette racing at Le Mans celebration, and Herb was insistent that I go with him and to Le Mans in '99. He said, "Ron, you have to see this event. It's very different than anything in North America." It's a car race, what can be different?
Different can it be?
And the difference was the how the event worked, and that was what, besides the massive crowds and the difficulties getting in and out, the format was nothing like I'd ever seen. Where initially you had the first few years we did it, we had they had a pre-qualifying event, which was 2 months before the race, and it was a Sunday, so it was like a 9-hour practice day on the last weekend of April or very early May. And then you came back in the middle of June for the race. But the format was Wednesday and Thursday. Practice was from 7 to 9 p.m. a 1 hour break, 10 to midnight. And that was Wednesday and Thursday. And there was no qualifying session. It was just at any time you would go light fuel, a set of soft tires, and off you and try to cut a lap. So whatever at the end of basically 8 hours of track time, whatever your fastest lap, that was your starting position. Now it's a much bigger show. They have a race or proper sessions for qualifying. They make it quite a big show, somewhat similar to the way Formula One does it in stages. But then Friday is an off day, and then there's this downtown Le Mans parade, and then the race back then was starting at 3 o'clock, and there was a 9 a.m. warm up. I mean, crazy. Just as Gary Pratt from Pratt Miller used to say, and we did the warm up, and he never liked doing it because it was just, for him, it was just he saw it as the warm up as just another opportunity to do some damage to one of the cars before a 24-hour race, a few hours later. So, but it was a super special event. Absolutely loved it. Challenging, and it was challenging from a weather standpoint too. When you're dealing with a track that's that long, there are periods where it'll be pouring rain in one section and not in the other. We experienced that in 2001 and 2007 in particular, but yeah, the race when we won the class in 2001. I did a total of 2 laps on a set of slicks. Everything else was rain tires. At one point we attempted to put slicks on, and I went out and came back in and literally spun coming into the pit lane from the Ford chicanes. It just wasn't, back to the rain tires we went, and but it was miserable rain conditions, and typically at Le Mans, everything's extreme. You get, when it rains hard, and it's generally quite cool, or it can be really hot. And 2000 was our first one. It was one of the hottest on record, and there was another one again. I think it was 04 or 05, super hot. This year was absolutely perfect weather. But just a magical event. And if you're a race fan, put it on your bucket list, because it's now become an incredible show. And that, I think the first time we went there was probably 45 or 48 cars, and now it's 62. And as they continue to extend and build more garages, they may be at the limit now, but right now the grid is 62, and now you just don't see a lot of the unreliability. The cars are, I think there were 2 retirements in the hypercar class this year. Mm-hmm. 4 in GT out of 24, something like that. Yeah, just it's an awesome spectacle, and just an absolute privilege to have been given the opportunity to compete there and get a couple of class wins.
Yeah, as a spectator, it's very different than, say, a Formula One race. The accessibility to drivers, to the machines, to the events that go on. Yeah. I had an impromptu meeting with Mark Webber on the street walking down in the town of Le Mans. Like, it doesn't happen elsewhere, and there's so much going on. It's a really special event. Ron, let's pivot to sort of, what does it mean to be a Canadian in this sport? Like, you are probably the best representation I can think of off the top of my head of someone who's, raced across multiple formats, been successful. But maybe, Canada's not the breeding ground for top talent drivers. So when you're competing, are you competing as a Canadian? Do you feel that sense of pride? Or is that, do you feel like a Canadian or do you just feel like a racer?
Oh no, well, you're a racer. You're a racer first, but yeah, no, I'm proud Canadian. You know, my helmet design incorporated a maple leaf on the side. And it's interesting if you look at in particular the years that I was doing NASCAR road races, it wasn't just Ron Fellows. It was always Canadian Ron Fellows. And I remember, oh God, it was when I won my first truck race in '97. They typically the media briefing post race was top three or whatever, and one of the drivers, and I can't remember who it was. Oh, it was Joe Ruttman. They in the media briefing they talked about I was the first foreign-born driver to win in the Truck Series, and I think only the second. Earl Ross had won a Cup race. I think it's '74. He was from the London, Ontario area, and only the second to ever second foreigner to win any kind of NASCAR race, but the first in the Truck Series. And Joe just pipes up and, who the hell let him in the country? Jokingly.
He's stuck in.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's a source of pride. You know, I certainly followed Canadians. You know, from when I first got interested in Canadian racing, there was the Formula Atlantic was huge, and Bill Brack, Craig Hill, then Gilles Villeneuve, and certainly my interest in Trans Am was watching Epi Wietz's and Mo Carter. It was Epi. I think Epi won the championship in '82 in a Corvette. But yeah, no, there's the influence of certainly Mosport, what is now Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, had a huge effect on me, and that racing influence and what you got to see. But it was also, in Eastern Canada, the tracks that we have access to. You look at, and certainly Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. It's an old school track. It's high speed, not a lot of room for error, elevation change, very mini Nürburgring Spa like, and I maintained all along that if you can, and have been told by many drivers, most recently Emerson Fittipaldi, who said, "Man, if you can be fast at the CTMP Mosport and win there, you'll be fast and you can win anywhere." So Canada has produced a disproportionate number of great drivers, and a lot of it is a lot of the tracks. Tracks are, and certainly Canadian Tire Motorsport Park is one of them that has helped create that skill development. The unfortunate part is we in the community in Canada have to do a better job of finding ways to develop talent. I would say that youth kart racing is quite healthy both in the East and the West, but it's the next steps in the ladder, whether you're going to pursue open wheel or sports cars. It's that next step is very difficult and expensive, and that's where we as the community, and certainly with the sanctioning body for motorsport in this country, we've got to try to do something. And there wasn't, when we lost all the tobacco money by the end of the near the end of the '90s, there wasn't a succession plan of what the next level of corporate support was going to look like for driver development, let's say. And yeah, just it's been tough.
Okay, let's do something fun. Quick fire question and answer. Okay. Most underrated driver of your era?
Most underrated. I wouldn't say he was underrated, but underappreciated. Richard Spinard. He was a mentor for me, and he was one of the craftiest racers I ever raced against. And you know, he was Gilles Villeneuve's teammate from Atlantic, and he'd done Trans Am and Can Am. And then when he came back, basically came back to Canada from the U.S. and started the Spinard David Racing School, and then through the 80s and into the early 90s when you had the Players GM Series, Rothman's Porsche Cup, and Export A Formula 2000, he was doing all three. Well, at the same time, as good as he was providing for the rest of us who were still learning, you know, indirect mentorship. And yeah, no, it was, and I got to work. Richard ended up hiring me, and I worked at his racing school, and he was very supportive in my early years and getting the opportunity in the Players GM Series. But I would say Richard Spinard.
Awesome.
You're appreciated.
Favorite track of all time?
Oh,
don't say the one you own.
Yeah. I like all the old school tracks. You know, Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta, Road America for sure. Road America is awesome, but man, Le Mans is special. I'm gonna have to say even Mont Tremblant in the Laurentians in Quebec, great track. But I would say Le Mans.
Okay. Post-race meal. What was the thing you craved when you got out of the car at the end of a 12 or 24-hour race?
Oh, I don't know about meal, but it was usually, I would say, probably a beer.
A liquid meal. Okay.
Yeah.
What was a car you never raced but wish you could? Raced in, drove.
Yeah, I mean, I to this day love Formula One, but the cars that were just incredible to watch, and I wish I could have raced, but I mean it was before my time. Can-Am cars, big bore Can-Am cars, they're badass.
Yeah. Enormous horsepower. Yeah.
Big time horsepower. Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Dog. We've had both, but I prefer dog.
Was there a song you listened to or something that you thought about right before a race, right before you get in the car?
Yeah, sometimes it would depend on mood, but yeah, no, I'm more of a classic rock kind of guy. There was yeah, and even a little Gordon Lightfoot goes a long way.
That might be the quote. That might be the quote of the interview. Mustang, Camaro, or Firebird? I'm thinking back to original Trans Am. I've excluded the Corvette from here.
Yeah, no, I think certainly the Camaro was the most successful, and yeah, no, I had an opportunity to drive some late '60s Trans Am series Camaros, and yeah, they're awesome. They certainly don't stop, but they don't corner, but they still went well in the straight line. So Camaro.
Amazing. Ron, any final message to the Alberta racing community out here?
Yeah, no. Racing, car racing is it's an electrifying sport, and then that's not in an EV sense. But
not yet.
Yeah, no, yeah, let's not go there. But it's the level. I appreciate the passion that everyone has for it, whether you're, a spectator or you're an amateur. There's a special bond in motorsport that is unique and exclusive, and be proud of that and keep the fire burning.
Ron, so where can people connect with you now? I know that you're continuing to give to the sport, things like, the karting championship, and then of course your legacy with your team around CTMP. What are you doing now that you want us to know about? And how do we help?
Yeah, I think, we're continuing with, obviously ownership, but my wife and Carl Fidani with Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, got the Corvette school in Nevada. So when you buy a new Corvette, it comes with a 2-day school. Come see us. And the youth karting, we want to continue to grow that. And I support the local karting community. Ken, these are, karting is still affordable for most as the entry to potential car racing. But it certainly, if you get a chance to see a high level kart race, it's pretty exciting stuff. And I think the in terms of in getting in touch with me, I think my son operates. We ended up with an Instagram page, and yes, you certainly contact me directly if you want through the racetrack at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park or Spring Mountain Motor Resort and Country Club where the school is. Just keep active and keep enjoying the sport. I think it's with the popularity of Formula One and certainly what Netflix has done, you're seeing all forms of car racing benefit from the popularity, and it's a great time. We just need to translate it into improved support for for young and talented, skilled drivers in this country.
Yeah, just locally, I know the drift scene is exploding, and they're getting 100+ cars at an event.
Wow.
We need to embrace that, even though I think it's confusing to us on the grip racing side. But it's a great sort of feeder, I think, back to your idea about the ladder. It's a great feeder for our sport, and we've got to be able to tap into that. So, Ron, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your gift of time and your stories. And I would just like to throw out, I have an X-Trans Am BMW 2002. It's not a 510, but you can have a seat in that car if you ever want to come out and race at Vintage on the Prairies next year.
Wrong brand, Anthony. Wrong brand. Yeah.
Wrong brand. But there's some on brand here too. Yeah. But anyway, we'd love to have you out, host you if you're ever in the area.
Thank you. I need to make a trip. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, guys. This was the faster I was. But in Ron's case, I think he's still pretty fast. So keep the shiny side up and keep improving the cars and most importantly, the stories.